The sky above the city of Zareth glowed with a harsh orange light, the sun barely breaking through the thick haze of smoke from the ongoing battle. From the highest balcony of the Empress's palace, she looked out over the chaos below. The city, once a place of calm order and glittering towers, now resembled a battlefield from a nightmare. Enemy ships streaked across the sky like shooting stars of death, and alien troops clashed in the streets, their weapons flashing bright against the gray dust. The Empress's golden robes fluttered in the strong wind that swept across the palace balcony, and her eyes, sharp and commanding, scanned for any sign of her guards. Her heart sank. Panic had already spread among her elite protectors. These were soldiers trained for every imaginable threat, yet the sight of the enemy approaching, combined with the fear of being overpowered, had shaken them to their core. One by one, they abandoned their posts. She saw them running down the marble stairways, leaping over railings and disappearing into the corridors of the palace. The Empress felt a rush of disbelief. How could they abandon her now at the moment when their presence mattered the most? Her hand went to the small communication device at her belt, intending to call for reinforcements. But before she could press the button, a voice called out behind her, a voice not tinged with fear, not hurried but calm and certain. "I will not leave you, Empress," it said. The Empress turned sharply. There, standing firm on the balcony, was a human. His armor was scratched and smudged with the dust and grit of battle, but he stood straight, his shoulders squared, his eyes steady. While the Empress's own guards had fled in fear, this human had remained. He was alone now, facing the approaching enemy with no one else to back him up. The Empress's lips parted in surprise. Why would a human risk his life for me?" she asked, her voice a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. The human said nothing. He simply gave a slight nod, as if to signal that words were unnecessary. His gaze was fixed on the horizon where the enemy forces were advancing. He moved slightly to position himself between the Empress and the first wave of attackers. Even from a distance, she could see the careful way he adjusted his stance, the precision in every movement. It was not panic that guided him. It was strategy. The Empress felt a strange sense of awe. Humans, in her experience, were unpredictable and often reckless, but this one was different. There was a clarity in his mind, a determination that refused to yield to fear. For the first time, she wondered if the stories told about humans being weak or unprepared were lies. The first group of enemy drones descended onto the balcony below. They were small, agile, and armed with energy disruptors capable of disabling an armored soldier in seconds. The human warrior reacted instantly. He raised his arm, activating a small energy shield that flared brightly and absorbed the initial impact of the drone's weapons. The force pushed him slightly back, but he remained upright, his focus never leaving the Empress. The Empress's heart pounded. She had never witnessed such courage. The human did not panic, did not shout for help, and did not hesitate. He adjusted the shield, and with a swift movement, used a short staff hidden in his armor to knock several drones out of the air, sending them crashing into the balcony's edge. Sparks flew, illuminating his determined face. The Empress gasped. How can one human fight like this?" she whispered, almost to herself. Before she could process her own amazement, the sound of more enemies approaching reached her ears. A squad of alien attackers, heavily armored and fast, were moving toward the palace gates. The human warrior glanced toward them briefly, then back at her, as if communicating a single thought: "Follow me." Without another word, he turned and sprinted down the balcony stairs, landing gracefully on the polished floors below. The Empress hesitated for a moment, then, trusting in his skill and resolve, followed. Her robes swirled around her as she moved quickly, the human always a step ahead, clearing paths and guiding her through corridors she had walked countless times, but never with such urgency. The corridors themselves were a maze, filled with mirrors and shifting holographic projections meant to confuse intruders. But the human navigated with ease, avoiding traps and disabling security measures before the enemy could exploit them. The Empress observed him closely, noticing how he combined instinct and logic, the way he calculated each movement, each step, with precision. "Empress, stay close," he said finally, his voice low but firm. "Do not wander. Trust me, and we will reach safety." The Empress had never been so aware of her own vulnerability. She had commanded legions, ruled empires, and faced threats on a scale she had never feared before. But in that moment, following this human, she felt a mixture of fear and hope. Fear because the enemy was relentless, and hope because this single human had refused to abandon her. They reached a side chamber that led to the palace armory, a hidden room few had access to. The human immediately went to the racks of weapons and pulled out a compact energy pistol and a small blade designed for emergency defense. He handed one to the Empress. "Use this if necessary," he said, his voice calm. "Aim carefully. We may not get another chance." The Empress took the weapon, feeling its weight in her hands. She had trained in combat, but never with humans by her side. The human noticed her hesitation and gave her a small, reassuring nod. It was not encouragement born of words, but of presence. His steady gaze told her that she was not alone, that he would protect her, that he would not fail. As they exited the armory, the sound of the enemy's approach grew louder. The palace itself seemed to tremble under the weight of incoming attacks. Yet the human remained composed, scanning the area, planning their route, predicting movements before they happened. The Empress marveled at his intuition. "Why are you doing this?" she asked again, genuinely curious. Why would a human risk everything for an alien Empress? The human did not answer immediately. Instead, he stopped briefly at a junction, pointing to a corridor that led to a hidden passage. He motioned for her to follow. "Because it is right," he finally said simply, almost as if the concept required no further explanation. The simplicity of the answer struck her. It was not loyalty born from orders, nor from fear, nor from reward. It was loyalty born from choice. The human had chosen to stand by her side because he believed it was right. The Empress realized that this choice, so small yet so profound, carried more weight than the grandest proclamations of allegiance she had ever received. The hidden passage led them to a lower level of the palace, a place where few had ever ventured. Pipes ran along the walls carrying steam and electricity, and the floor was uneven with cracks and maintenance hatches. Here, the human showed his true adaptability. He leapt across gaps, avoided falling debris, and even disabled a malfunctioning security drone that threatened to reveal their location. "Humans are extraordinary," the Empress whispered, more to herself than to him. She had always thought of humans as fragile, limited by their short lifespans and unpredictable nature. Yet this human moved with a skill, courage, and resourcefulness that no alien guard she had known could match. Finally, they reached a reinforced chamber that overlooked a hidden landing pad outside the palace walls. From this vantage point, the Empress could see the enemy troops advancing through the streets, but she could also see the human's careful preparation. He had already calculated the angles for defensive traps, had identified weak points in the enemy formation, and was ready to act at a moment's notice. He turned to her once more, his expression serious but calm. "Stay here, watch my back as I clear the way. We will move together when the path is safe." The Empress nodded. She had no choice but to trust him, yet she felt no fear. In the presence of his courage, her own strength seemed to return. For the first time since the enemy had begun their attack, she felt a flicker of hope. From the balcony above the chamber, the city stretched out like a battlefield of light and shadow. Yet below, in the heart of the palace, the Empress realized that the outcome of this battle was no longer just about numbers or technology. It was about courage, loyalty, and the unexpected power of one human willing to stand when everyone else ran. And in that moment she understood a truth that had eluded her for centuries. Bravery is not measured by size, species, or rank. It is measured by the choice to stand, even when all others flee. The human warrior stepped forward, scanning the shadows, ready to face the next wave of danger. The Empress raised her weapon not out of fear but out of determination. Together they would face whatever came next. And though the city burned around them, in the heart of that palace chamber, a bond was formed. A bond that would not be broken, no matter the odds. The hidden chamber offered a temporary refuge from the chaos above. Pipes hissed quietly along the walls, and the dim light from overhead panels cast long shadows across the metallic floor. The Empress held the small energy pistol in her hands, examining it with curiosity and a growing sense of respect. The weapon was compact yet powerful, and designed for efficiency rather than intimidation. She had wielded weapons before, but none like this. The human warrior observed her quietly, his sharp eyes scanning the corridors outside. Every step, every shadow, every faint noise was noted. His calm presence reassured her, and yet it made her feel restless. She had ruled entire planets, commanded legions, and faced foes who would make a lesser being tremble. But here, beside this human, she felt a strange mixture of vulnerability and trust. "Empress," he said finally, breaking the silence. "We need to move quickly. The path outside is dangerous, but I've identified a route that will take us to the outer walls. From there, we can reach the hidden landing platform." She nodded, her confidence growing with every passing moment. "Lead the way," she said, her voice firm, yet respectful. She noticed for the first time that humans spoke with simplicity and clarity, unlike many of her own advisors who often wove long, confusing arguments. The human stepped forward, signaling her to follow. Together they moved through the narrow corridors, avoiding detection from patrolling enemy troops. At every corner, the human paused, listening carefully, then motioned her to duck behind pipes or walls as shadows moved past. His movements were precise, controlled, and deliberate. As they reached a junction, the human crouched low, his hand hovering over a small control panel on the wall. He pressed a sequence of buttons, and a section of the floor shifted, revealing a hidden hatch. He opened it silently and gestured for the Empress to descend first. She obeyed, stepping carefully into the cool, dim passage below. The passage was narrow, lit only by faint red lights. It smelled of machinery and dust, but it offered protection. The Empress could hear the distant sounds of battle echoing through the palace walls, but down here, it was quiet, almost peaceful. She glanced at the human warrior, who moved ahead with a sense of purpose yet remained alert. He paused frequently, listening, peering around corners, and even disabling security devices that could have alerted the enemy to their presence. "How do you know this place so well?" she asked quietly, curiosity mixing with admiration. "I do not," he replied simply without turning his head. "I trust my instincts and I read the environment. It's what humans do. We adapt quickly. We think fast. We survive." The Empress studied him, impressed. In her experience, most species relied heavily on protocols, plans, and obedience. Humans, she realized, thrived on flexibility. Their strength was not in sheer power or numbers, but in their unpredictability and ingenuity. This human's calm and measured actions were proof of that. They moved deeper into the passage until they reached another hatch leading to an armory room rarely used. The human pressed a hidden button, and the door slid open silently. Inside, shelves were lined with weapons of all types, ranged energy, rifles, close combat blades, and various defensive devices. He moved quickly, selecting a small backpack and filling it with tools and compact weapons, then handed a secondary energy pistol to the Empress. "This is for emergencies," he said. "If we are separated or if you are forced to defend yourself, you must be ready." The Empress took the pistol, feeling its weight and balance. She had trained with many weapons, but the human's choice reflected understanding and efficiency. She realized that humans valued practicality over display, a lesson she had rarely seen among her alien allies. "Thank you," she said, her tone sincere. She was beginning to feel a deep respect for this human, not only for his courage but for his wisdom. The human nodded, then led her to a small corridor that descended further into the palace's underbelly. The walls were reinforced with ancient metals and energy conduits, and the faint hum of machinery filled the air. He moved with quiet confidence, knowing exactly when to slow down, when to speed up, and when to signal her to stop. Suddenly, a faint vibration ran through the floor. The human crouched instantly, placing a hand on the metal surface to sense the source. The Empress followed his example, watching carefully as he listened to the hum. "Enemy patrols above," he whispered. "They are scanning for us, but they will pass. We must move carefully and stay out of sight." The Empress watched him, marveling at his patience and attention to detail. He was not rushing. He was not panicking. He was guiding her with a steady hand and an unshakable mind. They continued through the passage, reaching a junction with multiple doors leading to unknown rooms. The human paused again, analyzing the options. Finally, he selected a door and motioned her to follow. Inside, they found a narrow stairwell leading upward toward the outer sections of the palace. As they climbed, the Empress asked, "Have you ever faced an enemy like this before?" The human did not answer immediately. His eyes focused on the shadows ahead, scanning for any sign of movement. Then he spoke, calmly but firmly. "I have faced many enemies, Empress. Some expected, some not. The lesson is always the same. Trust yourself, act quickly, and never abandon those who depend on you." The Empress considered his words. Loyalty, courage, and quick thinking, qualities often spoken of but rarely seen in action. She realized that humans, despite their small numbers and fragile appearance, possessed a kind of strength that could change the course of events even against overwhelming odds. They emerged from the stairwell into a small courtyard that connected to the outer walls of the palace. The courtyard was littered with debris from previous skirmishes, and the faint glow of energy blasts illuminated the far edges where enemy forces were still advancing. The human paused, studying the layout, calculating their next move. "Stay behind me," he instructed. "I will clear a path. Follow when I signal." The Empress obeyed. She had never felt so aware of her own vulnerability, yet she also felt a growing confidence in this human's abilities. He moved like a shadow, silent and precise, disabling traps, taking out small groups of enemies before they could detect their presence, and signaling her to move forward only when it was safe. As they navigated the courtyard, a group of enemy scouts appeared suddenly from behind a pile of rubble. The human reacted instantly, raising his weapon and firing a concentrated burst that disabled their scanners and sent the scouts scrambling for cover. The Empress, following his lead, took careful aim and fired at a small hovering drone that had been attempting to flank them. Together, they moved like a single unit, complementing each other's skills. For the first time, the Empress felt a deep connection to a human, not through words but through action, strategy, and mutual understanding. She realized that this was not just courage, it was intelligence applied with bravery, a combination she had rarely seen in any species. They reached the outer walls of the palace where a hidden lift was disguised as a maintenance hatch. The human activated it, and the small platform began to descend silently, taking them toward a landing pad on the outer edge of the palace grounds. During the descent, the Empress studied him. Every movement was deliberate, every choice calculated, yet there was no hesitation. He had chosen to stay with her when every other guard had fled. He had guided her through the palace, protected her from enemies, and now he was taking her toward possible safety. "Why do you stay?" she asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. He looked at her briefly, his eyes calm and unwavering. "Because it is right. Because someone must stand when others run. Because courage matters more than orders or fear." The Empress felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was not the warmth of comfort or safety. It was the warmth of respect, of admiration, of trust. Here was a being from a species she had underestimated, showing her the meaning of loyalty, courage, and intelligence in action. The lift reached the landing pad. They stepped out onto the platform, which overlooked the city now fully engulfed in conflict. The human surveyed the area quickly, noting the best route to reach the palace gates where a hidden shuttle awaited. "Almost there," he said. "Stay close, and do not look back. We will move as soon as I clear the path." The Empress nodded. She held her weapon tightly, ready to act but also ready to trust him completely. Together they would navigate the dangers ahead, relying on courage, intelligence, and mutual trust. And in that moment, amidst the chaos and destruction of the city below, the Empress understood something profound. Humans were more than fragile creatures. They were capable of bravery, strategy, and loyalty that could defy expectation. And in this human, she had found an ally who would stand when all others ran. The human warrior gave a small signal, motioning for her to follow as he began to move forward. The Empress followed without hesitation, her heart steady. The landing pad stretched wide beneath the night sky, illuminated by faint floodlights. The city below burned in chaos, the glow of distant energy blasts painting the horizon red and orange. Smoke rose in thick, curling columns, and the air was filled with the faint hum of distant engines and alarms. The human warrior and the Empress crouched behind a low wall, scanning for movement. The shuttle waited at the far edge of the pad. Its sleek hull reflected the dim light, and its engines hummed quietly, ready for immediate departure. But the path to it was fraught with danger. Enemy forces patrolled the area in small squads, scanning with advanced sensors. Any misstep could alert them, and the Empress knew that even one shot could end their escape. The human scanned the courtyard with his enhanced vision, analyzing the positions of the enemy and the obstacles between them and the shuttle. "We move in stages," he said quietly. "I will draw their attention in small bursts while you advance. Stay low, follow my signals, and do not hesitate." The Empress nodded. She had faced countless armies and deadly traps, yet there was something in the human's calm confidence that made her feel secure. His plan was simple, precise, and practical, qualities she admired greatly. She had never before trusted someone so completely in the middle of chaos. The human darted from cover to cover, activating a small energy device that emitted a short pulse, momentarily blinding a patrol nearby. The guards stumbled, shouting in alarm, and the Empress seized the opportunity to move forward. She crouched, low, her movements fluid and calculated, each step bringing her closer to the shuttle. The human continued to advance alongside her, firing carefully to suppress any threats. His actions were not reckless. Each move was measured and deliberate. He created opportunities without drawing unnecessary attention. The Empress marveled at his skill, realizing that human strength was not just in their courage but in their ability to combine intelligence, timing, and instinct. Halfway across the landing pad, an enemy drone appeared, hovering silently above. Its sensors scanned the area with bright beams, and its movements were precise, designed to detect even the smallest heat signatures. The human raised his weapon and fired a pulse shot, disrupting the drone's circuits. It wobbled in the air before crashing to the ground, smoke rising from its damaged body. The Empress felt a surge of admiration. "I have seen warriors from dozens of species," she whispered. "Few could do what you just did so calmly." He glanced at her briefly, his expression neutral but focused. "Calmness comes from preparation and observation," he replied. "Panic is the enemy of survival." They continued, inching toward the shuttle. A squad of enemy soldiers rounded the far corner, their weapons raised. The human assessed them quickly and then signaled to the Empress. "Behind me, follow my lead." He charged forward, moving with surprising speed and agility. The Empress followed, her own training allowing her to keep pace. He fired short bursts of energy, disabling 2 soldiers instantly while the others dove for cover. Using their momentary confusion, they sprinted to the next cover point, narrowly avoiding detection. "Almost there," he whispered, crouching behind a low panel that concealed a part of the landing pad. The shuttle was now only a few dozen meters away, but the remaining enemy forces were aware of their presence. The Empress checked her weapon. She had fired a few times already, but the pulse pistol was efficient and did not overheat. She admired its simplicity and power, qualities the human had chosen wisely. She realized that humans preferred practical tools that worked under pressure, unlike many of her species' complicated designs that often failed when most needed. The human peered around the corner, analyzing the remaining threats. "There," he said, pointing to a small blind spot near the shuttle's ramp. "We can move in stages. I will draw them toward the far side while you advance. Timing is critical." The Empress nodded and prepared herself. She felt a strange mixture of tension and trust. She was relying on a human to guide her through danger, yet she had never felt safer in a battlefield. This was not just courage, it was intelligence, strategy, and adaptability combined into one remarkable being. The human ran toward the enemy's far flank, firing bursts that drew their attention. The soldiers turned, focusing on him as he dodged and moved with remarkable agility. Meanwhile, the Empress advanced, her movements calculated and precise. She used every piece of cover, every shadow, and every distraction to her advantage. One enemy soldier broke from cover and aimed directly at her. She reacted instinctively, firing a precise shot that disabled his weapon. He fell back, stunned and retreating. The human saw this and adjusted his position, ensuring their path remained clear. Finally, they reached the edge of the landing pad. The shuttle's ramp lowered, revealing its interior. The engines hummed, ready to launch. But as they moved to board, a group of enemy forces appeared at the far end, cutting off their direct path. The human quickly assessed the situation. "Split," he said, his voice calm and commanding. "I will create a diversion. You board the shuttle. Do not stop." The Empress hesitated, but the human gave a small nod. He ran toward the approaching squad, firing with precise bursts that forced them to scatter. Their attention was fully on him, leaving the shuttle ramp unguarded. The Empress did not waste a second. She sprinted toward the ramp, her pulse quickening but her movements confident. As she reached the shuttle, the human glanced back. His eyes met hers, and in that brief moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. He would catch up. She had no doubt. She stepped onto the ramp and the human followed immediately, firing behind him to ensure no one pursued too closely. Inside the shuttle, the Empress activated the controls while the human secured the rear entrance. The engines roared to life and the craft lifted smoothly into the air. Outside, the city burned, a chaotic battlefield left behind. But inside the shuttle, there was temporary safety, a chance to plan the next move. The human leaned against the wall, catching his breath. The Empress watched him, her admiration growing. She realized that this human was more than a warrior. He was intelligent, brave, resourceful, and unyielding. He had chosen to stay when others had fled, to protect when others had abandoned. He was proof of the potential of humanity, a species she had once underestimated. "We are not out of danger yet," he said, breaking the silence. "We must reach the rendezvous point before reinforcements arrive." The Empress nodded. She had learned something vital during their escape. Survival depended not just on strength or numbers, but on quick thinking, adaptability, and trust. This human embodied all these qualities. She felt a growing sense of respect, and a quiet, unspoken bond began to form between them. As the shuttle soared above the city, weaving through the smoke and fire, the Empress reflected on the events of the night. She had been betrayed, abandoned by her own guards, yet saved by a human, a creature she had once considered fragile. The irony was not lost on her. Strength, she realized, came in many forms, and courage was not limited to her own kind. The human warrior moved to a console, checking their coordinates and adjusting the shuttle's path. The Empress observed silently, noting how efficiently he worked, how quickly he adapted to every challenge. She realized that humans thrived on problem-solving under pressure, thinking creatively when others might panic. "You were remarkable back there," she said quietly, her voice tinged with admiration. "I have faced countless enemies, yet I have never seen such precision and calmness in the face of danger." He glanced at her briefly, his expression composed. "It is not about being remarkable. It is about doing what is necessary. Every action matters, and hesitation can be fatal." The Empress considered his words carefully. They were simple, yet profound. In the midst of chaos, clarity and decisiveness were more powerful than brute strength. She had learned a lesson she would never forget. Humans, though seemingly fragile, possessed a unique combination of courage, intelligence, and adaptability that could turn the tide of any battle. The shuttle approached a dense forest outside, the city limits, where it could land safely and allow them to regroup. The human guided the descent, using the terrain to shield their approach. The Empress felt a sense of relief, but also a renewed determination. Their journey was far from over, yet she now knew that with this human by her side there was hope. As the shuttle touched down softly among the trees, the human quickly secured the landing gear and opened the ramp. They stepped out together, moving into the forest with cautious precision. The Empress felt the cool night air and listened to the sounds of the forest, a stark contrast to the chaos they had left behind. Here among the trees she had a moment to reflect. She had seen courage in many forms, but the human warrior had shown her something extraordinary. Loyalty, intelligence, and bravery intertwined in a way she had never imagined possible. "Rest for now," the human said, scanning the area for any threats. "We have a short window before we must move again." The Emmy. The forest was dark but alive. Leaves rustled as nocturnal creatures moved unseen, and the soft wind whispered through tall trees. The human warrior and the Empress had found a small clearing, and for the first time since escaping the city, they could pause without immediate danger. The shuttle was hidden in the thick foliage, its engines silenced, blending perfectly with the shadows. The Empress inspected the surrounding area, her senses alert for any sign of pursuit. Even after the chaos of the city, she knew enemies could follow them. Yet she felt a rare sense of safety with the human nearby. His presence was steady, confident, and utterly reliable. The human crouched near a large fallen tree, checking their supplies and scanning the environment. "We have limited time," he said. "They will search the area soon. We need to move before daylight." The Empress nodded. Her pulse was still racing from the escape, but the human's calm demeanor was grounding. She admired how he managed the stress of battle without faltering. Every move he made was measured, precise, and deliberate. It was a style of combat and survival she had rarely seen, even among the most disciplined soldiers of her own species. He motioned toward a narrow path leading deeper into the forest. "This will take us away from main patrol routes," he explained. "The terrain is rough, but it is our best chance to avoid detection." The Empress studied the path. It was steep and covered with thick undergrowth. One misstep could lead to injury, or worse, leave them exposed. Yet she trusted the human's judgment completely. She had learned that humans, though smaller and seemingly weaker than many other species, possessed an unusual combination of agility, intelligence, and intuition that often gave them an advantage in unpredictable situations. They moved quietly along the path, careful not to leave traces. The human led the way, his senses finely tuned to the forest's rhythm. He detected broken branches, subtle footprints, and even distant sounds that indicated the approach of unknown creatures. The Empress followed, moving with grace and precision, her eyes sharp, her mind alert. As they progressed, the forest grew denser and the night became darker. The canopy above blocked out the stars, and only occasional slivers of moonlight guided their path. The Empress's training allowed her to move silently, but she noticed that the human seemed almost in tune with the environment itself. His footsteps made no sound, his movements fluid and almost invisible. After several tense minutes, they reached a small river that cut through the forest. The water glimmered faintly in the darkness, reflecting the pale moonlight. The human paused, studying the currents. "We need to cross carefully," he said. "The current is stronger than it appears and the banks are slippery." The Empress assessed the river. She had crossed many rivers in her life, some under fire, others through icy currents, yet she felt a strange trust in the human's caution. "Lead the way," she said quietly. He stepped carefully onto the rocks, testing each one before putting his full weight down. The Empress followed, moving with equal caution. The water was cold and the current tugged at their legs, but they managed to cross without incident. For a brief moment, they paused on the opposite bank, both catching their breath and scanning the forest behind them. "You have an unusual way of moving," the Empress said, her voice soft but curious. "You are quiet, efficient, and aware of everything around you. Most warriors I have known rely on strength and force. You rely on something else." The human looked at her, his expression neutral but thoughtful. Awareness and observation are often more important than strength, he replied. Force alone will not keep you alive. Knowing your environment, understanding your enemy, and thinking ahead, these are what matter. The Empress nodded, slowly. She realized he was right. In her experience, many warriors underestimated the value of observation and timing. They relied on brute power, which could fail when facing the unexpected. This human, however, combined intelligence, courage, and instinct in a way that was almost precise. As they moved further into the forest, the human paused suddenly, crouching low and signaling for the Empress to do the same. Ahead, a small patrol of enemy drones moved silently, scanning the area. Their sensors glowed faintly, alerting any heat signature nearby. The human studied their movement carefully. "We cannot fight them directly," he whispered. "We must wait for the right moment." The Empress crouched beside him, watching the drones. They moved in a predictable pattern, sweeping the area in short, regular intervals. The human's eyes flicked from drone to drone, calculating distances, speeds, and timing. Finally, he gave a subtle hand signal. "Follow me," he said, rising slowly and moving in a crouched run toward a patch of dense undergrowth. The Empress followed immediately, her movements silent and precise. They slipped through the foliage, keeping out of the drone's line of sight. Halfway through the maneuver, one of the drones detected a small movement. Its sensors flared and a warning beep echoed through the forest. The human reacted instantly, tossing a small energy pulse device toward the drone. It emitted a bright but controlled burst, disabling the drone's sensors and causing it to spin out of control before crashing into a tree. The Empress watched, impressed. "You think quickly and your reflexes are sharp," she said. "I have never seen a human handle danger like this." He glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Humans survive by adapting," he said. "We face danger every day in many ways, not always with weapons. Adaptability is key." They continued moving deeper into the forest, careful and deliberate. The path was difficult, filled with obstacles, fallen trees, and hidden streams. Yet the human navigated it effortlessly, leading the way while ensuring the Empress remained safe. He moved with a confidence born of experience, a calm that reassured her despite the ongoing danger. Hours passed. The forest seemed endless, a labyrinth of trees, shadows, and hidden threats. Yet the human never faltered. He adjusted their path as needed, always observing, always thinking. The Empress had begun to realize something profound. Humanity's strength was not in size, speed, or raw power. It was in resilience, intelligence, and an uncanny ability to remain calm under pressure. Finally, they reached a small plateau overlooking a distant valley. The first light of dawn began to filter through the trees, casting soft shadows on the forest floor. From here, they could see the city's outskirts, still smoldering from the previous night's chaos. The Empress took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and renewed determination. "We need to rest and plan our next move," the human said. "From here, we can observe enemy movements and choose the safest path to the rendezvous point." The Empress agreed. She found a large rock and sat, taking a moment to stretch and collect her thoughts. She watched the human carefully, noting how he immediately began scouting the area, using every tool and skill at his disposal to ensure their continued safety. "You have protected me when all others abandoned their duty," she said quietly. "Your loyalty is rare." He glanced at her, expression calm. "Loyalty is earned, not given," he replied. "You trusted me to guide us through danger, and I will not fail that trust." The Empress felt a surge of respect. She had been betrayed, deceived, and abandoned by those who should have served her faithfully. Yet this human, smaller and seemingly weaker than many she knew, had proven himself invaluable. His courage was not flashy or loud, but steady, reliable, and unwavering. As the sun rose higher, the forest filled with light and life. Birds began to sing, and small animals moved cautiously through the undergrowth. The Empress felt a strange sense of calm amid the wilderness, a rare moment of peace after the chaos of the past hours. The human returned to her side, crouching and observing the valley below. "We have a window," he said. "Enemy patrols will shift soon. We need to move before they adjust their routes." The Empress nodded. She felt a mix of anticipation and confidence. With this human at her side, she had hope, a rare and precious feeling she had almost forgotten. "Lead the way," she said. He smiled faintly, a rare gesture that held warmth and reassurance. "Stay close, trust me, and we will reach safety." Together they descended the plateau, moving carefully but swiftly toward the rendezvous point. Every step was calculated, every movement deliberate. The Empress had fought in countless battles, yet this journey through the forest taught her a new form of strategy, one where patience, observation, and trust mattered as much as weapons and armor. By midday, they reached a concealed ravine that offered perfect cover. The human assessed the area and found a safe place to rest briefly. The Empress followed, her mind replaying the events of the night. She realized that humans were underestimated across the galaxy, their courage and intelligence often overshadowed by their smaller size. Yet in this human warrior, she had witnessed a combination of traits that could challenge even the most powerful adversaries. "We will rest here." The ravine was quiet, shielded by tall rocks and thick undergrowth. Sunlight barely reached the narrow floor, casting long shadows across the damp earth. The human warrior set down their small pack and began checking the area for any hidden dangers. The Empress observed him closely. His movements were deliberate, each step measured with care, every motion precise. "Rest a moment," the human said. "We need strength for what lies ahead. The enemy may be closer than we think." The Empress obeyed, sitting on a smooth rock, but her mind did not rest. She replayed the events of the past day. The city, attack, the chaos in the streets, the guards who had fled, and the human who had stayed by her side through every danger. She realized that she had never truly understood the resilience of humans until now. They were smaller, yes, but their courage and quick thinking often surpassed the mightiest warriors she had known. The human returned from a quick perimeter check. "We are safe for now," he said. "No patrols nearby, and the sensors haven't detected anything, but we can't linger. We need to move before nightfall." The Empress nodded. She trusted him completely. His judgment had proven flawless throughout their journey. He led the way out of the ravine, carefully selecting each step as they ascended a narrow path that wound through jagged rocks. As they reached the top, the valley stretched before them. In the distance, a hidden settlement awaited, an old outpost abandoned years ago but still intact. It was their best chance for temporary shelter, a place to regroup and plan their next move. The human scanned the path ahead. "We will move in small bursts," he said. "Stay behind me and follow closely. Avoid drawing attention. We only need to be seen by the outpost sensors." The Empress followed, her senses alert. Though she had led armies and commanded elite squads, she found herself learning a new form of stealth from the human. His patience and precision in movement were remarkable. Every step, every pause, every glance was calculated to minimize risk. They advanced slowly, using the shadows of rocks and trees to remain hidden. The air was tense with anticipation, but the human remained calm, exuding a confidence that reassured the Empress. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. The Empress froze, recognizing the sound instantly. Enemy drones patrolling the outskirts. She looked to the human, who crouched immediately and signaled her to do the same. "They are scanning the area," he whispered. "We must time our movement carefully. One mistake and we could be discovered." He watched the drones, calculating their patterns, their speed, and the timing of their rotations. Then, with precise coordination, he darted to the nearest shadow, moving silently and smoothly. The Empress followed, mimicking his motions, relying on his guidance. The drones passed without noticing them. The Empress exhaled silently, impressed by his skill and control. "You move like a predator," she said softly. "Your patience, your timing, it is unmatched." The human gave a small nod. "Humans survive by observing and adapting. Strength is important, but awareness is critical. They continued in this cautious manner until the outpost came into view. It was partially hidden by hills and dense forest, with walls covered in vines and moss. Sensors flickered faintly, scanning the surroundings for movement. The human approached the entrance carefully, analyzing every sensor and security measure. "I can disable some of these sensors for a short time," he explained. "It will give us enough window to enter safely." He reached into his pack and removed a small device, attaching it to a control panel. Lights blinked as the device worked, bypassing the security measures for a brief moment. "Now," he whispered. The Empress followed him through the entrance. Inside, the outpost was surprisingly intact. Old consoles lined the walls, and a few supplies remained scattered on shelves. It was not luxurious, but it was safe, and that was all that mattered. The humans set down their pack and began inspecting the area. "We can rest here and plan our next steps," he said. "We have some time before the enemy resumes their search." The Empress studied the outpost. For the first time since the city attack, she felt a sense of relief. They were safe, if only temporarily. But the safety was real, and that comfort was unfamiliar and welcome. "You have done more than protect me," she said quietly. "You have kept me alive, guided me, and now you provide a safe place for us to regroup. Your loyalty, it is remarkable." The human looked at her calmly. "I do what is necessary," he replied. "Protecting you is not a matter of loyalty alone. It is a matter of survival, strategy, and understanding the value of trust." She nodded, reflecting on the journey. Trust had been a rare commodity in her life, often betrayed by those closest to her. But this human had proven that trust could be earned and maintained, even in the most dangerous situations. Hours passed as they rested and gathered supplies. The Empress watched the human meticulously check the outpost's systems, making minor repairs and securing the area. His dedication and skill were impressive. He was small and unassuming in appearance, but his mind and determination made him a formidable force. As dusk approached, the Empress prepared herself for the next stage of their journey. The enemy would not give up easily, and they needed to move to a safer location before night fully fell. She trusted the human completely to guide them through whatever came next. The human finished his preparations and looked at the Empress. "We move now," he said. "The terrain ahead is rough, but we can use it to our advantage. Enemy patrols will avoid this area because it is difficult to traverse. We can slip through unnoticed." The Empress followed him out of the outpost, descending into a narrow canyon. The rocks were sharp, the path uneven, but the human navigated it expertly, testing each foothold and selecting the safest route. As they moved deeper into the canyon, they encountered a small stream. The water was clear and cold, flowing rapidly over smooth stones. The human paused, studying the current, then carefully stepped across. The Empress followed, her movements precise and measured. They continued through the canyon, emerging at a hidden valley filled with dense foliage. The human scanned the area and nodded. "We are safe for now," he said. "This valley will provide cover and a place to rest until we can plan our next move." The Empress breathed deeply, feeling a rare sense of calm. She realized that the human's strength was not just in his skill or courage, but in his ability to see and navigate the world differently. He understood survival in a way few others did, combining intelligence, patience, and instinct to overcome challenges that might have defeated larger, stronger warriors. As they settled in the valley, the Empress took a moment to reflect on the human's journey. From the moment the city fell into chaos, he had been her guide, her protector, and her steady presence. He had faced danger without hesitation, adapted to every obstacle, and maintained a calm and focused mind that had kept them both alive. "You have changed my understanding of strength," she said quietly. "It is not only in physical power, but in the mind, in adaptability, in courage when it matters most." The human looked at her with a calm expression. "Humans survive because we adapt. We learn from every situation and act decisively when necessary. Strength alone does not Guarantee survival. Awareness, timing, and courage do. The Empress nodded, realizing that this truth extended beyond their immediate survival. It was a lesson that would shape her approach to leadership, strategy, and trust. She had relied on powerful allies before, only to be betrayed or abandoned. But the human had demonstrated a different kind of strength, one that was rare and invaluable. As night fell, they built a small fire for warmth. The Empress sat beside the human, watching the flames dance and listening to the forest around them. For the first time in many days, she allowed herself to feel hope. They were not yet free from danger, but together, they had survived impossible odds. The human glanced at her, sensing her thoughts. "Rest now," he said. "Tomorrow we continue. The enemy will not stop, but we have the advantage of preparation and knowledge. Together we can face whatever comes next." The Empress nodded, feeling a deep respect and gratitude for the human who had walked beside her through darkness and danger. She understood now that survival was not just about power, it was about courage, intelligence, and the willingness to stand by those who mattered most. As they settled for the night, the fire crackling softly, the Empress realized something profound. She had not only survived because of the human's skill and courage, but because of the bond they had formed. Trust, understanding, and shared purpose had carried them through challenges that might have destroyed others. In the quiet of the valley, surrounded by the sounds of the forest, she allowed herself to rest, knowing that with the human at her side she could face whatever the universe had in store. Together they were unstoppable, not because of size, strength, or weapons, but because of their courage, intelligence, and the unshakable trust they had earned and won.